SAS macros are incredibly important, especially if you're producing a massive amount of reports or analysis for whatever your research requires you to endeavor upon. Now, what's tricky about the SAS macros and what SAS macros essentially are is their functions, is that they do not readily comply with some other common programming paradigms. And I was a bit confused initially as to why this may be the case. And the reason is that it looks like C was created in 1972, and C is sort of the grandfather or grandmother of all coding languages, at least modern coding languages are concerned. And SAS was created in 1976. So they had a bit of a co-evolution and not one directly stemming from the other, although there probably was some interlap there. But in any event, we should cover macro basics, and this is a bit of an introduction to SAS macros, so you'll have the knowledge and the know-how to do additional research if necessary. So this is the sort of the basic structure for creating a macro within the SAS programming language. First, we have the macro name. If we're creating a macro, we have to begin by using the percentage sign and then typing macro. And then next, you can name the macro whatever you'd like, and then follow that by a semicolon. So the name of this particular macro is DATABLOG. We're then doing a loop, or creating a loop for that matter. And we went over how to accomplish this in a prior lecture, but we're creating a do loop, and our counter variable is going to be I. So I is going to be 0. So we're starting at I equals 0, and then we're counting using %2 to the number 6, semicolon. So we're going to start a loop, and it looks like this is incorrect. We're going to iterate from 0 to 6. Here we are. All right. Next, we're going to declare our y variable. So when we're declaring variables within macros, we have to say %let. So %let our y variable equals eval, because we're evaluating a variable which is existing within our macro. So here's our I. We want to evaluate the value of I. So this is going to begin at 0. And so what this line in of itself will achieve, make sure you end up with a semicolon, we're going to create a new macro variable y, and we're going to use the let statement to assign a value to y. So y is going to begin at 0 because it's going to, with each iteration of this loop, which exists within this macro, count. So it's going to start I equals 0, y eval this, y equals 0. Then we're going to create a conditional. In this instance, if num, and then whatever the value of I is, so if num0 equals 0, then value 1 flag equals 1. So let's take a look at the test data that we're working with in the work library. So this is data frame test 1. You can kind of get an idea as to what I'm trying to achieve by creating this, this particular macro. What we want to do is we want to go through each variable, and we want to see if there's a matching corresponding observation as it pertains to the variable number. And if there is a match, then we want to create a new value observation, value flag equals 1. So there'll be a new variable here, value flag, and then if there's a match, it will be, that particular variable will contain the value of 1. So here's a little image that demonstrates what we're going for. So does number 1 equal 1? Does number 2 equal 2? Does number 3 equal 3? Does number 4 equal 4? Does number 5 equal 5? Does number 6 equal 6? In each instance, for each observation, row. If any of these particular conditionals are met, then we'll have a new variable value that equals 1. So in this case, does 1 equal 1? Yes. All right. In this case, is there a match? 9 doesn't equal 1. 6 doesn't equal 2. 8 doesn't equal 3. But 4 is equal to 4. So there's a match there. For this, is number 1 equal to 2? No. Is number 1 equal to 2? No. Is number 1 equal to 3? No. Is number 4 equal to 4? Yes. And so on and so forth. There's instances where there might be more than one match, but we're only interested in as to whether there is a singular match. If there's multiple matches, great. But if there's more than one match, a match of 1 or greater, then we'll have a conditional flag created. So once we have this all determined, we then end our loop. So this is the beginning of the loop. This is the end of the loop. This is the beginning of the macro. This is the end of the macro. So we have to first begin our macro. This is where we begin it. We define what's going on in the macro. So we're defining a do loop. Then we're ending the do loop. And then we're ending the macro. So this is macro DATABLOG. All right. And then we need to apply the macro. So in applying the macro, we have to make sure our data is closed. Apply the macro. So data, we're creating the new data set, test2, and that's in our data step here. We're dropping number 0 because that's unfortunately going to be created as a consequence of our the way we've structured our do loop. And we're going to use test1 as our point of reference in the set step. And we want to run DATABLOG. So here's our macro. We're going to create our macro. We're then going to apply the macro to data to our set, test1, and the output will be test2. That's the set we're creating, and we don't want any num0 in there, so we're dropping that. So let's go ahead and create our macro. Here we are. And then let's apply our macro. So nothing but blue. When you're creating your macro, you unfortunately don't get any blue text. You have to see the outcome to determine whether or not it was appropriately applied. So as you can see, we have it looks like the appropriate output. So here, let's look at a example where the value flag 1 wasn't created. Well, here, let's see. 0 does not equal 1. 1 does not equal 2. 1 does not equal 3. 1 does not equal 4. 2 does not equal 5. And 8 does not equal 6. So no value flag. But for every other instance, there is a value flag created. So that is it for this particular video lecture. Thank you for stopping by. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It would mean a lot. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the day. Take care.